Okay, we're on chapter 2. I'm probably not going to keep track of all the chapters by number, but uh, the brass has come out of the tumbler. I didn't bother filming that, and I wiped it down, and I gave it a quick inspection. Didn't have to really do much because it's brand new brass. It was only fired once from the factory. I know its history. So, anyway, here it is. And you'll notice I generated a ticket to show every stage of the reloading so that I know what step I'm on. It's very important to do that. You got to make sure you know what you're doing for each step and that you don't do a step twice. If you're taking it all the way through the reloading process, one step after another, of course you're going to remember. But sometimes I'll put brass away for months before I bother loading it. I'll clean it, might prep it some, and then I'll set it aside. So I always generate that ticket just to make sure. Okay, the next step would be resizing. And it's going to get a little more complicated now. What you do is you have a prep pad right here for lubing the cases. You put case lube on it. It already has some, so I'm not going to put it on, but that way you can lube the cases with just a small, tiny amount of lube. You do not want to overlube cases because they will get destroyed. The hydraulic pressure inside the die will cause cupping in the shoulder area and pretty much destroy your brass. So you got to take your reloading, your resizing die. It's one you'll easily recognize because it has a little pin to take out the primer. And you screw it into your press. You need a shell holder, which is the size 4-270, which snaps into the press to hold the shells, and it can grab onto that rim. It's sized to do that, and when it goes into the die, it will pull it back out. Occasionally they get stuck in there, and that's a whole rigmarole. Would take a whole nother video just for that. Now, the way to set the die, you put your press all the way to the bottom. Then you screw the die in until it's touching the shell holder. Raise it up a little bit. Go a little bit further. It should cam over. Let me say right now, that is for steel dies only. If you have a carbide die, which are a lot of pistol dies, most pistol dies are carbide, you don't do that. You don't cam over, and instead we'll have a slight gap. I usually use a piece of paper and make sure there's a slight gap, but this, it goes down and you get that little bump. So we're gonna roll them across this pad, get a little lube on them. You put it in your shell holder. And that's all there is to it. It just, that resized it to the size it's supposed to be, the stock size that the specs call for. Because when a cartridge is fired in the gun, it expands. That's what it's designed to do. It expands some, and it basically becomes a gasket to keep the gases from coming back and burning your bolt, because it can destroy a bolt face if they don't do it properly, or if they crack, or the base splits, anything like that. That could destroy a rifle, or at least the bolt. So you want to make sure the brass is resized so that it will chamber properly. Now, you can, if you're going to use the brass in the same rifle, you can use a neck sizer, it's called. I have one of those for 270. I don't have them for too many of them, but if you use a neck sizer, it will only resize the neck portion of the brass, just this small area up here. If it does that, it'll still work. It'll be a little harder to chamber. It will chamber, but supposedly it adds a little bit of accuracy. Still trying to decide if I believe that, because I've tried it and it didn't seem to make much of a difference. But it might if I actually go a little further into using different powders and charges and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, I'm not going to bore you with watching me resize all of these. You got the idea. You resize them, and that would be the next step.